Hello, everybody. Thanks for Svanjar's very warm, welcoming comments. The survey we are going to talk about are about attitudes on economy and enterprise in post-sanction environment. The methodology that we have, as we will go over, you'll see that the survey was conducted in partnership with Bourse Bazaar and by IranPoll, which is an independent full-service company exclusively focusing on data collection in Iran. The methodology for this particular survey was a telephone interview, so it was what it calls CADI. The sample was an Iran representative sample of 700 Iranians. The margin of sampling error resulting from the sample size was 3.7, and the data was collected in August 2017. As you will see in the presentation, I used some of the data which are from other countries. Those data are coming from Pew Global Attitude Survey. Before we go to the detail of this particular survey, it helps to answer one general question that sometimes we get that question. How far the survey results from Iran are reliable and how far we can trust the results? Well, the answer is if surveys have been done scientifically, and if the surveys have been done scientifically, following the exact methodology religiously, then yes, the statistical science does not wait on the borders of Iran. The same tools that have been used in any other country could be used reliably inside Iran. An example of it was the recent presidential election. IranPoll called the election 3 days ahead of the actual results, and our results was published in Economist before the election. And as you can see, the predicted results was 2 percentage points far from the actual results of the election, from 3 days before the election. So yes, if done correctly, survey is a valid, predictable tool in Iran. Now, let's go over the particular survey that we are here to talk about. The main message of the survey, as you see, is that Iranians are very much welcoming to international trade, even compared to many other countries. When we ask Iranians, what do you think about the growing trade and business ties between Iran and other countries, a strong majority, 85%, say that they see it as a very good or somewhat good thing. When we put that in context, comparing it with other countries in the world using the Pew Global Attitudes data, we see that Iran is actually on the high side. Iranians support trade more than many other countries. When asked, in your opinion, when foreign companies build new factories in Iran, does this have very good, somewhat bad, or very bad impact on our country? A whopping 90% of Iranians are supportive of this fact. They support building new factories in Iran. That becomes more interesting when we put it in context. Compare Iran with all the other countries from Pew Global data. Iran is literally topping the list. Iranians are strongly in favor of opening up, having international trade, and having new factories built in Iran. When we ask Iranians of their thoughts about this particular statement, the statement being, Iran would mostly benefit from allowing multinational companies to freely compete with Iranian companies. Freely compete. We get a majority, 60% of Iranians saying that, yes, we agree with that statement. We do have a 34% who disagree. Now, I think we made it clear that Iranians overwhelmingly support the idea. It's a country that is open to international trade. How does that translate in policies? We offered few policies to Iranian respondents, and let's see the results. When we asked them, do you approve or disapprove of these policies, we see that a strong majority, 88%, say that Iran should make it easier for multinational companies to invest in Iran. We get, in the other question, 86%, a strong majority, saying that Iran should make it easier for multinational banks to operate in Iran. Multinational banks are also having such a support in Iran. 89% say that Iran should make it easier for heads of multinational companies to travel to Iran. And we have 59% even saying that. That's going as far as saying Iran should ensure the investments that multinational companies make in Iran. Now we also have 41% saying that Iran should reduce tariffs on goods made by international companies, multinational companies. We do have a welcoming population in Iran based on the survey. Now, that was a rosy picture, and it's a true picture. That doesn't mean that there is no challenge. There are lists of challenges that multinational companies will face in Iran. Among those, we are covering 5, which are based on the survey results that we have. 4 of them are internal challenges and 1 external, which we will get to it soon. The internal challenges based on the survey are protectionism, domestic competition, lack of local presence, and lack of local knowledge. The first one, while Iranians welcome international trade, as you all saw, they do oppose lifting the tariffs that are protecting domestic producers. When we ask them, do you approve or disapprove with the statement, with the reducing tariffs on goods made by multinational companies, we do get a majority, 56%, disapproving with that statement. We do have still 41% who approve that statement. This means that for the foreseeable future, it would be politically unfeasible for the government to reduce the tariffs. So multinational companies, it seems that for the time being, they can't really compete on the price. There are, of course, other competitive points that the multinational companies can rely on. Second challenge is that the foreign producers have to compete with local producers. As many of you know, on many sectors and many goods, there are active productions of Iranian domestically produced products, and they are actively being purchased by the Iranians. Just as an example, let's go over health and grooming products. When asked, does your household generally buy Iranian-made health and grooming products or European-made products, we see a majority, 59% of Iranians say they use Iranian-made health and grooming products. We do have 17% that use European-made products, and 23% say that they use both equally. When we ask them what brand of shampoo is currently used in your household, we can see that the majority of brands of shampoo being used are obviously locally produced. Same picture remains when we ask them about what brand of washing machine detergent is currently used in their house. The majority is locally produced. We have the data for actually every single consumption good and sector with this type of detail. The fact is, the local brands are active. The local brands are being purchased. There are a few sectors that do have a stronger presence of imported goods, like the electronics, but most of the FMCG, we see the same picture. This may be due to the fact that widespread presence of counterfeit products are making Iranians less confident about the goods that they see, the European goods or foreign goods that they see on the market. For example, in one of our questions, we asked the Iranian respondents, some say most products in Iran's market that are said to be made in Europe are in reality counterfeits and lack European standards. Others disagree and say most such products are genuine and are identical in quality with products that are sold in Europe. What do you think? We see that the majority of Iranians, 55%, said that the most of them are counterfeits. We do have 25% that say most are genuine, and interestingly, another 20% say they don't know. So when the goods are available, Iranians don't know if they are real or they are counterfeits, and that affects their consumption behavior. There is a solution for that. When we asked Iranians if you knew that a particular European producer has an official representative office in Iran, would that increase, decrease, or have no effect on your confidence in the quality of that producer's products that are sold in Iran's market? We see that a majority, 58%, say that it would increase their confidence. So an easy way for European producers, foreign producers, to gain back a majority of confidence would be to officially open representation. The fourth challenge is that Iranians are also not confident that European producers have a good sense of the needs and tastes of the Iranian people. When we ask, some say that European producers do not have a good understanding of the needs and tastes of the Iranian people due to their prolonged absence from Iran's market. Others disagree and say European producers have a good understanding of the needs and the tastes of the Iranian people. What do you think? We get, on one hand, 46% saying that they do not have that the European producers do not have a good understanding, and a 40% say that they do. So we have the both sides of the story presented here. On the same point, Iranians do not think that multinational companies operating inside Iran take the interests of the Iranian people into account when making decisions. When we ask the Iranian respondents whether they agree or disagree with this statement, that multinational companies operating inside Iran do take the interests of the Iranian people into account when making decisions, we see a majority, 62%, disagree with that statement. So we covered 4 internal challenges that European and foreign producers face in Iran. Of course, there is a big one, which is external, as I think everybody here knows. So let's go over a few facts. While in general, majority of Iranians have continued to support the JCPOA, as you can see over time, and while majority of Iranians are confident that Europe will oblige its obligations under the JCPOA agreement, an increasing majority of Iranians believe that the United States will not hold its own end of the bargain when it comes to the JCPOA. And look, at the time that the agreement was made, we had a strong goodwill from the people. You see continuously what has happened to now that we have 77%. Also, when we ask, are multinational companies moving as rapidly as they can to trade and invest with Iran now that some sanctions have been lifted, or are they moving slower than they could? We get that a strong majority, 70% of Iranians say that the multinational companies are moving slower than they could. And what do they blame this on? When we ask, in your opinion, are multinational companies are moving slower than they could to trade and invest with Iran, mostly because of the main reason 76% of Iranians give is the pressure or fear of the United States. And 16% say it's Iran's own weak business environment. These views have natural negative implications. They have negatively affected the image of the United States in Iran. Look at these 2 results. So while 59% majority of Iranians say that Iran's relations with European Union countries has improved since the deal was signed 2 years ago in 2015, a majority, 56%, think that Iran's relations with the US has worsened during the same time. Also, while 45% of Iranians think that the reputation and image of EU in Iran has improved in the same time. 61% think that the reputation and image of the US has suffered in the same amount of time. And naturally, these views have economic ramifications. Look at this one. For example, Although Iranians are eager for more trade relations with other countries, particularly those that produce high-quality products, there is less of an appetite for increased trade relations with the United States. We asked this battery of questions from Iranian people. In general, how good or bad is the quality of products produced in each country? As you can see, the list on its own is interesting, but the United States in particular is holding a high level. Iranians, majority of Iranians believe that the United States produces high-quality goods. But what happens when we ask it this way? How much would it be in Iran's interest for more companies from different countries to invest and trade with Iran? See how the United States dropped in the list. While Iranians believe United States goods to be of high quality, but obviously compared to other countries, they do not think that it would be in Iran's interest with the investment from the United States. Now, this list deserves its own attention for the placement of different countries in the list. As you can see, we get Chinese, Turkish, and Russian products that are very much available in the market versus some of the countries that are less available. Also, I think of note is the view of the Iranian people about the products of Iran itself, the domestic products. And we get here the same image. Most of the countries held their position, but you can see what happens with the United States. Now, despite all these challenges, Iranians are still hopeful that the nuclear deal will eventually improve the lives of the Iranian people. When we ask how optimistic are you that as a result of the JCPOA, people's living conditions will improve going forward, we see that a majority continue to be optimistic. Are Iranians more optimistic than many of us here? Perhaps, but as Fanyar said, well, we are optimistic to be here. And that's the case with many Iranians. In response to the question, when children today in Iran grow up, do you think they will be better off or worse off financially than their parents? We see that majority of Iranians think their children will be better off. In fact, again, putting it in comparison, in context with other countries, we see that the Iranian people do have a higher tendency to be optimistic. Now, the JCPOA also had, as we saw, the confidence of Iranians toward Europe. When asked how confident are you that the European countries will live up to their obligations under the agreement, majority of Iranians think that they will. Only history will tell us if that trust was well placed. Thank you.
Amir, thank you very, very much. We are, of course, running a little late, but never mind. Any questions, please? That was fascinating. Question here, and if you could identify yourself, that would be extremely good. I think a microphone may be coming towards you. There is a young lady here. She's rushing, and there we are. Yeah. Thank you.
Hi. Thank you very much. Sam Tamiz from Abaco Global Resources. Quick question. You said that Iranians prefer to buy domestically produced goods, but then Iranians themselves list Iranian products as some of the worst. So how do you explain that contradiction?
I don't think that's much of a contradiction. The decision point about which products to produce comes from a wide variety of reasons. As you know, it's about the pricing, it's about the availability, it's about the support, depending on the good. If the good is more durable, the support that the consumer would receive is very important. It's also about the marketing, the advertisements. It's about the reputation. As you know, it's a complex decision when someone buys a product. Now, to see what happens in action, that's more important. The data I showed you shows what happens in actuality. At the end of the day, what is the product that Iranians decide to get to their household? In all the sectors, FMCG, that we have the data, and we have it for all the sectors, we do see the picture quite clearly. Iranian domestic produced products do have the highest purchase. That doesn't mean that that can't be changed. There are, in fact, examples, for example, in toothpaste, that it changed. A foreign brand came successfully, and it's now the first one. It is possible to change that, but it needs some steps, like having their official representation in the country and understanding the taste of the Iranian people.
Amir, one quick question. Your 700 sample, were they urban Iranians?
Yes, it was urban representative.
Now, if you had rural Iranians, how do you think the
So we
results
do
would have
have
been different?
national surveys, not this one, but for the brands, we do cover rural areas. We have national. That actually goes more toward the domestically produced products because the price becomes a more important decision, and also the availability.
And in terms of attitudes towards protectionism, towards tariffs, etc.?
So the most of the surveys we have done with University of Maryland, they are national. I think actually all of them. And you can see the picture stays almost the same. It doesn't change that much, except few particular exceptions.
Okay, thanks. Any more questions, please? And the gentleman here.
I'm Ali from National Iranian Copper Industries Company. You gave us a very good descriptive picture on the subject. And there is somehow methodological questions on this, and this is not within my interest now. What is your policy recommendations to the private sector, to the governmental sector, to the policy makers, to the lawmakers, to the judiciary sector? How we should translate the outcome of this survey into action. It is a very good, a very important step in this kind of surveys. And also for the gentlemen that are present here.
Of course.
Have you ever done something like that or not?
Very good question.
Of course. So usually at IranPoll, we do not go toward making policy recommendations. We usually stay until the point that we collected the data and we present the data as wide as possible. Usually, using the same polls, people can get to the even contradicting policies depending on where they are coming from. But the data speaks for itself for most of the cases when the people want to make policies. Now, in a personal opinion, I might opine with different policies. But as far as it goes for IranPoll, I think we prefer to stay with the facts. So we don't go as far as making policy recommendations. But personally, later, I will give you exact detail. What should everyone do?
Very neatly ducked. Any final question, please? I can't see a hand right. So, Amir, thank you very much indeed. It's excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.